My internet is being funky. Oh. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you taking the time today to join us. We're going to give it just another minute or so for folks to log in, and then we'll get started. I tried to have a fancy welcome video to share, but I think my internet was being a little funky. So. All right, we are also recording today's session. So just know that we will be able to provide the recording as well as presentations from the speakers for you available in the online classroom. All right, without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for being here. My name is Jackie Peralt. I am the director of the Jacksonville Women's Business Center. Today, we are featuring a webinar on PPP loan forgiveness. We have here today an outstanding panel to give you different perspectives to help you understand the process of the loan forgiveness. We will also have this recorded and available to you in our online classroom, which we will provide to you tomorrow to access all of the information. I am also going to introduce our coordinator for the Women's Business Center, Georgia Pinner. She is going to introduce our panelists for today and get us started. Georgia?
Hi, everyone. Like Jackie said, my name is Georgia Pinner. I'm a coordinator for the Jacksonville Women's Business Center. Our first speaker we have is Rosalind Bryant. She is a lender relations specialist. She is a lender relations specialist and district international trade officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration of the North Florida District Office. Rosalind has worked for the SBA North Florida District Office for over 30 years. She provides counseling and training to potential and/or existing small business owners, lenders, and small business resource partners on SBA's guaranteed loan program and services in the North Florida District Office area. Our next speaker is Julie Graham. Julie is the Vice President and Financial Sales Manager of First Citizens Bank. Julie has 12 years of experience in the financial services industry. She is known as a trusted banker, helping her customers achieve their financial goals. Julie is knowledgeable and passionate about both legal and medical industries, working with many customers to grow their business. Our final speaker is Tim Raines, partner, Patrick and Raines CPAs. Tim Raines has been a Jacksonville CPA since 1996. He's held experience in all levels of accounting, including training and supervising staff, reviewing tax projects, performing complex tax research, and fostering and maintaining client relationships from beginning to end. With that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Rosalind and we'll get started.
I think you may be on mute, Rosalind.
I am on mute, and thank you.
That's okay.
I am Rosalind Bryant, and I am your lender relations specialist for the North Florida District Office. So today what we're going to do, we're going to go over the forgiveness process and the solutions that SBA has come up with to help the borrower and the lenders to make this a smooth process in getting your package forgiven. So to get started, I'm actually going to turn off my video, and then I'm going to start with this. So as you know, the SBA has come. You could, next slide, please. So loans of $150,000 or more represent 93% of the outstanding loans through the PPP process. Approximately 6.5 5 million of the loans still remain to be forgiven. So SBA has developed two solutions to assist the borrowers and the lenders. And with that, the two solutions are the COVID revenue score, which I will refer to as SCORE, and the direct forgiveness process. Next. So the direct forgiveness process for lenders that choose to opt in. So you heard me, opt in. So it's up to the lender if they choose to participate with this process. So if your lender, so you will have to check with your lender to see if they choose to opt in. And by doing that, you can go to their website, or they may have sent you an email, or you may have already received the email from the portal saying that your lender has opted in to use that this process. So for lenders that choose to opt in, SBA will allow the borrowers to submit the forgiveness application for your first and your second draw loans using this platform. This is a secure location that will help this ease this process a little easier. Next. Borrower must submit your forgiveness application directly to your lender. So if your lender chooses not to use this process, you must go directly to your lender. So some lenders do not use it. So more the big banks, they are not using this because they have their own process, they have their own system in place for the applicant, for their applicants to use. So, and then if your loans are $150,000 or more, you must submit your forgiveness process directly to the lender. And then for some reason, when you go on this platform and say that your lender did opt in, but you go on this platform and you start putting the information in there, and the information that you see in there is not correct, or it's not mirror image to what you think should be in there, you cannot move forward. You must then back out and then submit your information directly to the lender for them to review to make sure that everything is correct. And for any other reason the platform rejects your request, you must go directly to that lender. Next. So the COVID revenue score. So for second draw loans, for the second draw PPP loans, SBA is providing the COVID revenue score. This will serve as an option to the documentation for the borrower's revenue reduction. As you know, to be eligible for the second draw PPP loan, the borrower, had to show a 25% reduction in your revenue in 2020 versus 2019, which could have been done quarter by quarter or annually. So providing that documentation has been an issue with some of our borrowers. Therefore, SBA came up with this COVID reduction score. So the score is a pass or fail. The borrower and the lender will be able to see the score. So SBA will score all second draw PPP loans that are $150,000 or less. So if you have that second draw, it will be scored. Next. So the COVID reduction score. So when the score validates, as I said before, you will receive a pass or fail. That is a score, pass or fail. So if it validates, and if the borrower has not already provided the documentation to the lender, you will be required for the borrower to document the reduction. So if the borrower has already provided the information to the lender, then the lender can move forward to making that decision. So when the score does not validate, meaning you receive a fail score, and if the borrower has not already provided the documentation to the lender, the borrower must provide the documentation either directly to the lender or upload the information to the platform if the lender has opted in. So if your lender has opted in, you can upload it. If they have not, you have to submit it directly to them. So if the borrower has already provided the documentation to the lender will make the forgiveness decision based on the documentation. Next slide. So regardless, if the lender opts into the forgiveness, the following applies to all borrowers. The documentation overrides the score. So if the lender has documentation that the borrower did not have a 25% reduction, a satisfactory score would not make the borrower eligible. The lender may not make the forgiveness decision based on the score. If the lender knows that the borrower is ineligible, the lender may not approve the forgiveness. So remember, folks, the lender makes the decision, not SBA. The lender makes the decision, not SBA. So when you're inputting this information in the system and providing the correct and the verifying documentation that is needed, make sure you're putting it in there. It's for the lender to verify. Even though the SBA have come up with this solution and have this out here for you, it's the lender that's going to has to review the information that you're submitting to make sure that it is accurate before submitting to SBA for the final decision. However, if that lender is not pleased or feel that that is incorrect, or the information that you submitted to them is not right, they may not move forth with that package. So when you're inputting that application in, it goes to the lender for review, not directly to SBA, to the lender to make sure everything you're putting in is correct. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the direct forgiveness user guide is like 27 pages there. So you can go through it and just receive basic information and step-by-step procedures on how you can complete this process. Next slide. Registration. So the forgiveness portal. So you must register. You must register, folks. You must register. You must take your time and go through and register, get a username, the user ID, your password, and go through this. Make sure you do this. If you don't do this correctly or get through this correctly, you will have issues at the end. So make sure you go through that registration process. So the PPP direct portal can be accessed. I'm going to say this site, however, this PowerPoint will be provided to you so you will get it. The links are active in the PowerPoint. So if you click on them, you will go directly to that. But that website is https://directforgiveness.sba.gov. Again, that's https://directforgiveness.sba.gov. So when you go there, you will, excuse me, whose borrows loans that are $150,000 or less, and the lender has opted in to use this, you will be able to submit a simple pre-fill application to move forward through here. Next slide. So direct forgiveness portal, new registration. Register to start your application. Again, you will have to create a name, username, email address, all this good information. You must put this information in here. Take your time, folks. Make sure you're writing down your username, the email address you're using. Make sure you're putting all that good stuff in there, because once you create this information, your email address cannot be changed. So don't give an email address just to see if it's going to go through. Make sure you're using the correct information. Next slide. So the direct forgiveness portal. So once you go in and you register your email, verify your email address. Once you put that information in there, you're going to receive an email with a link. That link, when you click on that link, you will have to confirm your email address. Once you confirm that email address, then you're going to receive another email saying, hey, greetings from the SBA PPP portal is open for you to go. Once you provide that verification of your email address, again, it cannot be changed. There is no reason for you to call and come back and say, I made a mistake. I'm telling you now, take your time and move through this process. It's very user-friendly. You can move through it as long as you have everything that you need in front of you to move through. Don't try to rush through it. Next slide. Signing in. Once the registration is complete and you confirm your email addresses, the applicant, you can gain access to this portal. You will have to enter your username, enter the username and your password, and then you'll sign in. Password resets and forgot password links are available. But again, those are resets. That's not if you're changing anything. So make sure you know what you put in there. Write everything down, folks. Next slide. So it's also the SMS 2 factors of authentication there. So once you go in and try to sign in, once you have done all of what you need to do and you go in and you try to sign in, you're going to receive authentication. It's going to be a code. So you can either use a landline that you put in there or a cell phone number. And then once you go in, they're going to send you a code to that number, whatever number that you provided to them, just so you know everyone has to do that. When I go into the portal, I have to receive that as well. When every time I go in there, I have to put that in there. They send it to my cell phone. I put that code in there, and then it gives me that. That is to help you, to let you know that your information is confidential and is secured. Next slide. So the application submission. Next slide. So the portal has many tools to help simplify the submission. So we're just going to run through this because this is the information of the homepage that you will use when you sit down. So folks, make sure you get you kind of review this PowerPoint, and you'll kind of see some of the questions and some of the documentation that will be needed when you're going through. The questions they're going to ask as far as your gross receipts and all that information like that. You kind of already know what you're going to have to verify, because that's the information, the reason why you got the loan. So so have that information in front of you so you can move through. Next slide. So start a new forgiveness process. Again, you're going to put your EIN or your social security number, your ITIN in there, enter your loan number, and it's going to find your loan. Information going to populate regarding your loan. So you want to move through. The information that populates cannot be changed. So for some reason, that information is not the information that you have, or it has changed where it has not been verified or been told to SBA, you probably shouldn't move forth for it. That's something that you want to go back to your lender. So any changes that have been made with your business that actually was not in effect when you first applied for this loan, you may want to make those changes actually before you go in here and start trying to use this system, because you're going to run into a problem that really you can't do. So security measures have been put in place to where it will prevent duplications. So you just want to make sure that you have the information and everything is verified. Next slide. Most of the loan information will populate, as I said before, and it will be locked for editing, so you can't edit. Any incorrect information must be updated through the PPP lender prior to the forgiveness submission, which I already said. So you want to make sure that you kind of go through this PowerPoint and kind of see the information that you may need. Make sure that it's correct. Make sure it's matching up. Make sure you're putting the information, and make sure you don't make a error when you inputting this information. Just so you know, it takes anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes to complete the application process. I'm not talking about when you're setting up your password and getting registered, but the process when you sign in to move through this portal to submit your application to the lender. It takes anywhere from 6, as of yesterday afternoon, it was taking an average of 6 minutes. So I'm going to say it's going to take you 10 minutes just to give you 4 extra minutes. So that is on an average it's taken to move through. Some folks may take less time than that. But again, as I'm stating to you, get all the information you need so you won't have to be looking for anything. Take your time, have this PowerPoint in front of you to move through to kind of see what is there and what's coming up next. Next slide. So if the lender has any additional funds or as part of the PPP loan increase, initial disbursement, all this information, or excuse me, the initial disbursement, all this information is here. So you see, you have to put the gross receipts there, anything that you need, whether you use 8 weeks, 24 weeks, or wherever, you're going to have to verify and put that information there. So if you don't know this information before you start the application process, look through your paperwork or your documentation that you received from your lender to find that information. And or if you don't see the information, contact your lender, shoot an email to them, let them know, hey, I don't have this information, but you are PAR, you have opted in to use this portal. So let me know what I need. Again, you need to continue to communicate with your lender. This is not taking your lender out the process. You must continue to communicate with your lender throughout this. Next slide. And again, this is just some of the section 2, some of the information that you would need: number of employees, number of employees at the time of forgiveness. You're going to have drop down boxes. You're going to have options. You're going to have question marks. If you see the question marks next to something, excuse me, click on that question mark, because that can help you fill out the information that you need. It's kind of giving you some examples and samples of what you may need or what this actual section is asking for. Next slide. So required documentation to be shown on the screen. Again, just putting the information in there. You may get once you put the majority information in there, you at the end, you may get a message that said no documentation. So that means you don't need no documentation. You're going to move forth. Next slide. And then you may get that message that says documentation needed. So you would drop down and you will have that option to see what documentation that is needed to move forth with this process. Next slide. So review all information. To complete this, review all relevant information for accuracy. And then once you sign and submit, edits cannot be done to this application, folks. Again, I told you it takes anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes to complete it. There's no need to rush. There's no need to rush. There's no time. You want to go through it. There's no race in this. You want to complete your application to make sure everything is in there so you can get your loan forgiven. So there's no need to try to make it faster than 6 minutes, try to make it faster than 10 minutes. If it's taking you 15 minutes, okay, it takes that time. But make sure you're putting the correct information in there before you submit, because now you can't change anything. Now you have an error in there. Now you have to go back to the lender. So you this purpose of doing this direct forgiveness directly, now you have to still go to the lender. That is what you're trying not to do. You want this process to move very quickly. Next. So when you get down to the bottom, if you have any missing items, if you did not answer any certain questions are not answered, that's required to answer. If you didn't put the information in like you're supposed to, this system is we're saying it's smart, but it's going to say missing items summary. So if you have any missing items, you're not going to see that submit button to submit your application forward. So you will have to go back to see what you missed and find that information. So again, it's helping you. So take your time, folks, to make sure you're answering the questions accurately. Make sure you're completing the information. I'm not sure, I haven't really went through this, but if it asking you a question, provide an answer. Don't leave nothing blank unless you can just leave it blank. So if you have a yes, no, NA, don't just leave it blank. Put the NA in there. That way they know that you have read the information and you have moved forward with that. Next slide. Application signing. So next slide, you will have, once you complete everything, you can be able to DocuSign this application. So you agree to use the electronic records and the signature. Next slide. Once you agree to do that, you're going to move continue. You're going to see the application that you put in. Again, you're going to be able to review everything. Like, again, pop-up will allow information that's out there. And then you're going to have to sign and initial. It's going to tell you where you have to put your full signature and where you initial. Next slide. So when you review that information, if for some reason you look in there and you're looking at that when you're DocuSign it, before you sign it, now you're looking at it and say, oh, I have a mistake. I put a mistake in it. Oh, I didn't supposed to put that. Oh, I put the wrong amount. That is not correct. You can decline to sign. So if you decline to sign, you will experience a brief waiting period. I think it's about, I think on the average yesterday, it may be a little over 5 minutes, but it may be 5 or 10 minutes, but you want to wait. Once you go through that, then the applicant can return to the request. You can exit the wizard and you can regain access to your application to make the necessary edits that you need. So again, it's giving you a chance to make sure you put the information that you need in there. So make sure you review, folks. Proofread, go through it each time you have that option. Go through it to make sure you're putting the information in there. Next slide. So submitting the application. Next slide, please. So once the applications are submitted, the process can be reviewed through the portal. Now I'm going to, or on this PowerPoint, you're gonna have a number, a call center. This call center is not able to provide a timeline of forgiveness. Once you submit that information to the portal, now that portal is gonna be your friend. You're going to check that portal for updates, your statuses and stuff like that. That call center is there to help you get through this application process. However, they don't have a status. They don't know how long it's going to be. They have not given a timeline on how long it's going to be. Remember, once you submit the information, your lender will receive a notification that, hey, you have a forgiveness package in there that needs to be reviewed. Now, the lenders are reviewing their packages in the order that they were received. Remember, there were over 7 million applications out there, and many of the lenders had over 2,000 to 3,000 PPP loans that they made. So they have to review the information in the order they receive, and they must be given a decent time to review everything. That time, we don't know. It may take a day, 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. We don't know. So I know this is very easy for me to say and harder for you to do, but we just would like for you to submit your package and then sit back, be patient, continue to check that portal to see the status there. That is the main thing. Check the status on the portal. Once you submit, if anything, next slide, if you have any corrections that are needed, if the lender needs to make any correction, continue to check that portal, because you're going to receive an email saying that, hey, this is not correct. The lender has submitted something, you need to correct that, or the lender is telling you that. So remember to continue to check that portal at least on a daily basis to provide the information, the correct information if needed, to the lender so they can move forward. Next slide. So once the application moves from the lender to SBA for decision, below, which you will see, the lender will be available within the application, this letter will be available in the application portal for you to confirm of your forgiveness. So you will have this. Use this as your official letter right off, because right now, again, we had over 7 million applications, so you may not receive anything right off right now from SBA or from your lender. Remember, they're trying to process all these forgiveness applications, which they made in a timely manner. So please use that portal. That portal will be your friend to receive access. Receive access to statuses on your on what your application is at, what's going on with it, anything like that. You have the resources out there. Next slide. You have links in there where you can go to the frequently asked questions as well. Next, resources. So how do you gain access to the portal, which I gave you, and it's here as well. You can go to this portal here and you gain access. How do you contact SBA? The number is here, but I'm going to say it is 1-877-552-2692. That's 1-877-552-2692. Again, this call center is for applicants who lenders have opted in to use this portal, and they can help you with that information. Some of the information you may need that you don't have, they may help you with it. Once you submit that package through, that call center is not for you. You're now going to that portal where you have registered and gain access to receive updates and emails back and forth on what's going on with your package. Where can you find information about direct forgiveness? It's a knowledge-based, frequently asked questions information out there. Once you receive this presentation, these links are active. You could click on them. However, if you don't have that, just when you register in the portal, you go in the portal, this information is out there for you. So again, my name is Rosalind Bryant, and I know we're gonna wait to the end for when we open it up for questions for everyone. So just write your questions down or hold your questions, and because more than likely your question will be answered from the other two presenters that proceeding after me. Again, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosalind, for sharing that information. Just like she mentioned, we'll have that available for everybody after the fact. But with further ado, we're going to allow Tim Raines to share with us some tips and traps on the PPP loan forgiveness. He is with Patrick and Raines, as we had mentioned earlier, and he's a great supporter of the Women's Business Center and always so willing to volunteer and facilitate programs for us. We can't thank him enough. So thank you, Tim, for being here.
Thanks, Jackie. Happy to do it. Rosalind, that was excellent. Truly appreciate that. The SBA has really gone out of their way to get that portal nice and operating smoothly. I'm excited to see it. I know it's going to be a tremendous benefit for a lot of our clients as well. So what I want to talk about a little bit, obviously everything we do here has a little disclaimer, right? Everybody's situation is a little bit different. It's a little bit unique. So what I'm providing you is just general knowledge. We'll try to do our best to answer as many specific questions as we can, but obviously we can't get into all the details on such a short call. So please be sure to check with your own advisors and the SBA and your bank as well. What I wanted to talk about is just give you a brief intro. You're already in the middle of the CARES Act. You're already in the middle of this PPP process, but I wanted to kind of review a little bit of it. That will pull us right into some of the intertwinings that I wanted to talk about, some of the little traps that we can get into. Then I'll go through some of the questions we've received, and I've just confirmed, somebody give me a thumbs up that you can see my agenda here. And I'm sharing my agenda. So also review what will be taxable, talk very, very briefly about reduction of the number of employees and the documentation needed. Now, keep in mind, as Rosalind said, not all of this is going to apply to you, because if you're less than 150,000, your forgiveness process is slightly different than if you're over 150,000, or if you're over even say 2 million, which we've had the option to deal with here in our office. So brief summary, and I was so grateful that Rosalind brought this up as well. I know that PPP got a lot of bad press when it first came out, all the big Bruce Chris and all those people getting the loan, but here are some of the local stats. So we had a marketing firm really go out and look at Northeast Florida, everything Jacksonville to Lake City down to St. Augustine. And here are some of the stats we had in our local area. The PPP loans really went to smaller companies. The average size company was between 8 and 9 team members. The average loan in our little area, and these stats may have updated in the last 6 months or so, is only about 114,000. So these really were small business loans. This was a great thing I think Congress did in order to help us all out during the pandemic. And another interesting tip, 71% of these things were through local and regional banks. They were not through your big Wells Fargo. I know they got a lot of news from it, but really, this really was a benefit to local small folks. The reason I wanted to bring up, a lot of people forget there was a bunch of stuff in that CARES Act. Remember, we had the pandemic unemployment assistance. We had a plethora of SBA assistance, not only the PPP loans, but the EIDL loans. There was SBA grants. There was a lot of other provisions, and I'm not going to go through all these. I just wanted to throw it out there so that we understand the complexities of the law, and then we can appreciate Rosalind's portal even more once we understand how crazy this law really did get. You had the employee retention tax credit. You had the option where you could delay payment of employer payroll taxes. I think the only person that really jumped on that was the federal government themselves. Small business owners kind of shied away from that. Then individual recovery checks, those were the stimulus checks. There was also changes to the retirement plans. There was the addition of the $300 above the line charitable contribution, which I think some of us got on our tax returns. There was other tweaking that they did to cash charitable contributions and that sort of thing. But the reason I bring it up is because all of these things, and I know the slide's a little fuzzy, all of these things were involved in some way in the law. So there's a lot of complex things going on. And then on top of all that, thankfully, Congress in their infinite wisdom had an opportunity to correct some of the fuzzier areas of the law, or some of the parts of the law that were actually contradictory to one another. And again, I don't want to go into it. I just want to let you know that there was some confusion when PPP first came out, right? That's why we had changes to it. That's why we had PPP1, PPP2, potentially a PPP3. Some people count that differently and say, hey, maybe we're really on PPP4. But we had this Appropriations Act that came out in December. The CARES Act came out in March, right? We were all in the middle of the pandemic. A lot of us didn't know what was going on. Were our businesses even going to survive? How are we going to handle this? So the CARES Act was kind of hastily put together in March 27th of 2020. Congress came back to do the Consolidated Appropriations Act, even though it says of 2021. It actually passed December 21st. You probably saw in the news a bunch of CPAs and accountants were going crazy that we would have a new tax law at such a last minute. It was a great opportunity for us to stay employed because just of the complexity. But the Appropriations Act was pretty lengthy. It tweaked a lot of the CARES Act. It tweaked a lot of the PPP. Just a few stats up here. It was one of the lengthiest laws ever to pass Congress. It was 5,500 pages. Remember when the Affordable Care Act, everybody was complaining how long that was, and it was only 906 pages. So this is a huge law. It was passed kind of in a hurry, had a lot of pork in it, had a lot of different things in it, but it also provided a lot of good benefits. It extended the unemployment benefits. It provided another PPP loan, and it did clear up some issues we had with the PPP, which I'm going to get to in just a second. So I bring all of that up just to tell you that we really do have a tangled web here. Some of this may not apply to you if you're under 150,000, but over the next couple of slides, I just want to give you things to look out for, because if it does apply to you, you want to be aware of it. You don't want to get caught in a couple of these traps. One of those traps was in the Consolidated Appropriations Act when they extended and tweaked PPP and the ERTC, which is the employment tax credit. Recall now that your PPP is not all about payroll. It is the Payroll Protection Act. That's what it was for, to protect the payroll. But a lot of people, small business owners, were like, well, it's great that I'm paying my employees, but if I can't pay rent, I'm out of business anyway. So there were provisions in the PPP loan that you could use part of those funds to cover non-payroll expenses. It started off, I believe it was 75%, and then it got revised down to 60% had to be used for payroll. Why do I bring all this stuff up? And I really bring it up because those non-payroll expenses were totally necessary to keep the businesses going. They covered things such as your mortgage on the building, rent on the building, utilities, your electric, your gas. You can't keep the lights on, It doesn't matter if you have employees or not. Internet access, telephone, transportation, those sorts of things. These were all permissible expenses as part of the PPP loan and the forgiveness process. So, and again, why am I rambling on and on and on about these other non-payroll expenses? I'm doing it because of this little thing called the Employee Retention Tax Credit. It is a huge benefit for folks who have employees. Now, for example, in 2020, that credit could be up to $5,000 per employee. The Consolidated Act tweaked that a little bit and said that that could be up to $7,000 per employee per quarter. So it could be a $28,000 per employee tax credit that you might want to look into. And here's why it makes a difference. Again, this is not an ERTC class. Again, if you think this applies to you, reach out to your payroll service provider. I know ADP is doing a great job with their calculations on their payroll portal on how to do this. We still don't, there are still questions about the ERTC. For example, we don't know whether owners are going to qualify. So if you're a sole practitioner and it's just you, this may not apply to you. There's still some confusion there. Even confusion as late as a few days ago, the IRS issued notice 212149 on August 4th, and it even contradicted itself. So we, in the CPA community, we're really kind of up in arms about this. We need some clarification. There is no credit for any period in which you qualify for the work opportunity credit. And there's no credit, this is the important part, there's going to be no credit for wages that you use to apply for your PPP loan forgiveness. Okay, so some of you, I know your wheels are already turning now and you're thinking, this is interesting. So I made up just a brief scenario here. Suppose in scenario one, you got a $100,000 PPP loan and you had $100,000 of payroll cost. You didn't put any non-payroll expenses on your forgiveness application. The end result is your PPP loan got forgiven. But what happens to the ERTC? You had total payroll of $100,000. You used up all of that $100,000 on the PPP loan. So you had no wages left over. You had no payroll cost eligible for the ERTC. Okay, so 0 wages times 6 employees, you got a 0 credit. So what if you were a little more strategic when you filled out your PPP loan forgiveness application? I am not saying fraud. The SBA will not look lightly on that. They take this seriously. The SBA is almost as bad as the Florida Department of Revenue. You need to cross your T's and dot your I's. But in looking at the law, if you're allowed to use up to 40% of the PPP loan for those non-payroll expenses, so now we have scenario number 2. You had a $100,000 PPP loan. You use $60,000 of your wages to cover the payroll cost. You use $40,000 and you're able to document all of this. You use $40,000 toward your non-payroll expenses. Your loan is still forgiven. But here's what happens on the ERTC. Payroll costs were $100,000. You used up $60,000 for PPP. Remember, you cannot double dip. That's illegal. So you use up $60,000 for PPP. That leaves you $40,000 of those payroll costs that could be eligible for ERTC. So you look at your credit, you got $5,000. Suppose you had 8 employees. Boom, there's a $40,000 credit. So all I'm saying is be really careful. If the ERTC doesn't apply to you, no big deal. Go into the portal, upload your payroll statements, show that you used all the money for the PPP, and you're good to go. But if this applies to you, you might want to check a little bit deeper into it. Here's another example taken another way, adds another layer of complexity to it. Remember that PPP 1 in 2020 happened in the middle of the year. So suppose on the left, you had 50,000 of gross wages in each quarter, okay? The law was passed and it allows you to use ERTC credit from March 13th through the rest of that quarter. So suppose that last week or so of the quarter, you paid $7,500 of wages. So now you have potential wages eligible for the ERTC of $7,500. Okay. The next quarter, you'd already gotten your PPP loan. You're already in your PPP covered period. So you're going to use those wages to cover the PPP. So 50,000 and 10,000 in the third quarter. The rest of those wages you want to calculate and keep track of. Again, your payroll provider may do this wonderfully for you. I'm just bringing it to your attention so you keep it in the back of your mind. Use up the rest of those 40,000 in wages in the third quarter toward your ERTC. And then in the fourth quarter, all of those can go to ERTC. So you potentially have wages of $97,500 that you can go for the ERTC credit. Keep in mind, the credit needs to be calculated on an employee basis. So when you really get done doing all the math, this next slide is going to kind of scare you. It couldn't get it big enough to fit on one screen, but you basically look at each quarter side by side, how much is going to apply for the credit, how much is going to go to the PPP, and you list each employee. And you go through a calculation like this. Again, your payroll provider may do this for you. But my biggest point here is it's all about documentation. Do not do anything that you cannot document, that you cannot support. I'd also make a little quick note here, and I'll mention it again. Even though you may not be required to upload your documents into the portal, you are still obligated to maintain that documentation. And Rosalind went over it kind of quick, but that's exactly what that letter says that you get back. Hey, you're forgiven, but don't forget, you're still on the hook to support your documentation. You want to hold on to it. Don't just throw that away. Do not just click the box and say, oh, they'll never check me. Like I said, the SBA will check you. So another good question we get a lot is this, will the PPP loan be taxable? Great question. There was a lot of confusion when it first came out. The original law said, hey, you're right. We are not going to consider this, cancellation of debt income, that CODI. Anytime you default on a credit card and it goes into collections and they write it off, that cancellation of debt is income to you as a taxpayer. So the original legislation said it will not be subject to the COD income. So the forgiveness will truly be tax-free. Well, that's an interesting concept. So the IRS, believe it or not, inside the Internal Revenue Code, it says money that you get tax-free, you don't get a deduction for that, right? You got it for nothing, you don't get a deduction for it. So everybody was all concerned and upset about it. The congressional leaders were upset about it. The AICPA was upset about it. We eventually put a lot of pressure on Congress. During that whole process, the IRS kind of doubled down and said, no, the Internal Revenue Code is written this way. The IRS can't do anything that your congressman doesn't tell them to do, right? A lot of people get mad at the IRS. I always tell them, call your congressman instead. So the IRS said, no, I'm sorry, this is the way the law is written. So believe it or not, like I said, buried in those 5,500 pages of the Consolidated Act was indeed a confirmation and a change of the law where Congress said, no. The income that you get from the loan is not income, not going to be taxable income to you. And the expenses that you paid out to the employees to keep them employed, you're still going to get to deduct those. So it's a win-win all around. I was so grateful that they did clarify that. So if you're still thinking old law, don't worry about it. It's not going to have a tax, not going to be taxable income to you. So what do you do with the PPP loan, right? It's just like any other loan. When you got it, you put it on your balance sheet. It's a loan payable, and you'll want to leave it there as a loan payable until you get that SBA letter. Once you get that SBA letter saying it's been forgiven, then you can reclass that to what we call other non-taxable income. And your accountant and your tax preparer will know how to treat that on the corporate return if you have one, or on your personal return, because it will not be taxable to you. Another interesting issue that may not apply to all of you, but there is a basis issue. For example, you cannot get basis in your company for income that isn't going to be taxed. So just a side note, You didn't pay tax on it, so it doesn't come into you as what we call basis. And again, if you've never heard the word basis, then it probably doesn't apply to you. You don't need to stress about it too much. Very, very briefly, I'm going to talk about the reduction in number of employees, because as you're going through your application, it may ask you, did you keep everybody employed? Because come on, let's be honest, folks, that's what this law was all about. It was about keeping the employees employed. There is a formula that's in there. Again, this may not even apply to you if you're under a certain threshold, but I wanted to just let you know there is a formula out there. The portal may even walk you through it if it's applicable to you. What I wanted to get to is some of the questions people ask. Again, nice little formulas here about it. I'll give you these slides and we can talk about it a little later, but I didn't want to go rambling on and on and on about a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't apply to you. So here's the resource if you need it. Let's talk about the questions. We had, for example, we had a big nursing home here in town, and they said, well, we laid some people, well, this actually happened to a restaurant. They laid a bunch of folks off. The shutdown happened. They were out of, the restaurant didn't open for 2 or 3 weeks, and then it slowly opened back up. Remember that, like 25% capacity. And then for a couple of weeks, we went to 50% capacity. Well, what about those folks? They couldn't get people to come back to work. Everybody had already started their unemployment. They were enjoying those benefits, and it was really hard to get servers to come back into the restaurant. So here's the rule. If you have laid somebody off and now they won't come back to work for you, all you have to do is document the fact that you have offered them their job back, maybe a certified letter, maybe an email, something like that. You need documentation that you offered it to them and that they still refused. If you did that, then the fact that you couldn't rehire everybody is not going to ding you on the PPP loan. A lot of people are stressing out over the employee count, but really, there are real common sense ways to address some of these issues. For example, this one's one that happened at the healthcare agency. If you've terminated an employee for cause, you're not required, to hire them back. You simply have to document that they were let go for cause and that you attempted to fill the position. Obviously, nurses are hard to find right now, and this nursing home was not able to rehire everybody that they had pre-pandemic. So that's a big deal. It's not going to hurt you. You just need to have your documentation in place. Same thing as if an employee retires. They've retired and you no longer need that position, or you're no longer able to fill that position, just document it. Now, I know that Rosalind said documentation a bunch of times. I've said documentation a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure Julie's going to say the same thing to make the bank life interesting. Please be sure that you're maintaining your documentation and records. So what do you actually need to do? And this is going to apply to most loans above 150,000. There's definitely a little bit of more paperwork involved. Please try to keep these records. We've been telling our clients ever since the PPP loan came out to start getting their act together. This will really help you speed up the process. Rosalind said, have all your documentation ready before you do that application, and 6 minutes later, you're done. That is a win-win situation. Try to gather it ahead of time. Try to maintain good books and records. My last point there, I'll repeat again, is just good business practice to have really good accounting procedures and record keeping. So what kind of documentation is needed? There is no hard set guidance as to exactly what you ought to keep, but here's what everybody's saying. Here's what we're hearing from banks. Here's what CPA firms are recommending. You need to keep your payroll records. Again, ADP, Paychecks, whoever, they'll help you provide some of these to you. Invoices for things such as employee benefits, any of those other expenses such as your rent, keep those, keep proof that you've paid those expenses. Hopefully you're doing that already, but just keep it on that full-time equivalent for the staff. Again, keep those documentation in your HR files, and you'll be okay. Keep things like your power bill, your water bill, your telephone bill. If you're going to use those expenses to qualify for the PPP forgiveness portion, keep those records. And I would say duplicate them. right? You have your normal accounting records where you're keeping all of your JEA bills. I would say create a separate folder for the PPP forgiveness. That way, all of your documentation is in one place. When you get ready to go see Julie, you'll have all your documentation there. When you get ready to go to the portal, you'll have all your documentation there. Keep in mind that you couldn't have, you can't buy a new building in the middle of your PPP period and expect to have that forgiven. Okay, that was just one of those rules. These have to be obligations that you had pre-pandemic, and the date Congress picked was February 15th. So keep that in mind as well. You can't just go out and buy a big building in the middle of the PPP covered period and expect to deduct that. More documentation. They have kind of relaxed some of the rules regarding certification, but there is still a check the box that you needed this money and that you qualified. Again, do not go quietly into the night. You really need to understand that, hey, yes, we needed this money, and I am vouching and certifying that we use this PPP funds for legitimate expenses as the program intended. Don't play the Russian roulette that they'll never catch you. Gather all your lease agreements together. Anything that you had in force as of February 15th, grab those. Again, back to record keeping. Keep a good system of how you're tracking your expenses, whether that's in QuickBooks, that's great, but also keep those canceled checks, keep those invoices, keep the bank statements. Again, it's just good business practice. As a CPA, I would feel remiss if I didn't remind you of that. I also I'm going to include these in the slides so that you can have them, just various resources if you wanted to go and look at some of these. Actually, some of these may be dated because they started creating all these different applications. The portal is going to resolve that issue for you. Thank you, Rosalind. Thank you, SBA. So you can just go right to the SBA websites or right to the portal to figure out which application you need. The portal will do it for you. A lot of the bank portals will do it for you as well. A little more information about PPP. Again, look at these. These are the SBA websites. This is the Treasury website. This is actually our website. The SBA has done a really good job of making this as simple as possible for you. So I encourage you to go through and look at some of these great resources. Again, more SBA, more AICPA stuff in there as well. And this is me, this is my YouTube channel and that sort of thing. So you can check us out there. And I think we're going to go right into Julie's presentation and we'll hold questions to the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. Truly appreciate you giving that oversight and those examples. It really helps, I think, paint that live picture when the business owner is sitting there trying to understand how this applies. So thank you. With that, we're going to move on to Julie Graham. Julie is a great friend of mine. She's a great supporter of the Women's Business Center, been a mentor and facilitator at different programs. So I'm so happy to have her here. Truly an expert at what she does. And again, just like Tim, makes it really understandable for everybody. So we'll have some of her insight as well from a banking perspective. So Julie, give you the spotlight. I think you're muted.
There. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, I think it went back to mute. Sorry. There we go.
Is that good?
Cool.
Okay, we got it. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Tim and Rosalind, for providing that information. So the bank, what role do we play? I know Rosalind and Tim both kind of referenced and touched on that very well. So I would best explain it to, business owners as we're the intermediary between you and getting your information with how you want to, apply for your forgiveness and getting it to the SBA to get it forgiven. So how should you go about this? Who should you contact first for what? I get a lot of questions that should really go to like Tim, a CPA. Should I claim this? Should I file it this way? And we can't really help you with that. That's your decision where you have to talk with your tax professional and seek guidance. Another thing I'm running into is a lot of businesses that have applied for this program, they never really worked with a CPA or a tax professional. They kind of did things on their own, so they don't know who to reach out to. So it's great that you've got the resource there. Just know we're not the ones that can give you that advice. So what we can help you with is getting the process done and completed. So if you are doing it online, like Rosalind mentioned, you need to make sure your bank is one that opted in. Not all banks did. If you want to go that route, that doesn't mean you have to go that route. For instance, we took on a more hands-on approach because we are a commercial institution and we have relationships with clients and relationship managers. That's just our design and our culture. So we really helped our clients through the application process, and then again through submitting it online. So the way it looks like for us is clients go through their online banking, and then it's there. The portal is there to upload the electronic, documentation. They can do it all online themselves, but they can call us. So they can reach out to the relationship manager who helped them with the application, and we can help them, with questions on how to get it submitted. For instance, I've had people call me and they need their loan number. They don't have the original paperwork that has the loan. We have that. The bank has that, not Rosalind. That's our loan number that we tied to it. So how to access the portal and get it submitted, we can help you with that. And then as Rosalind mentioned, we do have an internal underwriting process. That's just to make sure that the information is accurate. It matches the documentation should you need to provide documentation. We also here have given our clients a checklist that's available to them. So then that way it can just cross-reference some of those documents that would be needed and what you need to enter for that information. But you have to fill it out. One of the most challenging things I think for us as bankers that do really help our clients as much as we can is, not being able to fill that information out for you or make little corrections, because this is a program where we have to get it submitted to the SBA and they're looking at it as well. When we typically do SBA loans, we work with an SBA lender as well, and they help with that SBA side, we help with the bank side. So it's the same with this, except for you're not really working with an SBA individual. We're trying to help you be that go-between, and then we're still having to submit it to the SBA. So we have to make sure that that information input is correct, but some of that is not, up to us just to go in and enter and change, where we might do that for our own, loans that we might do, where we can go in and say, hey, you missed this. What is it? Let me correct it. There is a process to this. So if you're experiencing that kind of difference with working with your lender that typically kind of steps in and does things for you and is more hands-on with that process, there's a reason for that. So just, bear with us, and you really have to take ownership of that process. Like Rosalind said, take your time and enter that information correctly, because not only is it going to your bank to get approved, and then we might, see something that's missing, we've got to kick it back to you. We can't just fix it. We kick it back to you, you got to resubmit it again, and then we submit it once we see everything looks good on our end. Again, we're not checking for some of those, tax implications like Tim mentioned. We're just checking for accuracy based on the original application, and that the figures, line up with any documentation provided if necessary. And then we submit it to the SBA, and then the SBA will approve the forgiveness, and then, we can implement that with you as well. We do have a status update on our online portal as well, so you can check and see where it's at. We can't give you an estimated time frame, again, because we're going through the SBA, and just think of capacity. So all the loans that were taken now are being forgiven and going through that same portal, so it can take time. So you'll just want to make sure that you submit it in a timely fashion, right? Make that a priority. Again, I think the order should be reach out to your bank first, see how is that process going to happen for you. So if it's a bank that's just going through that SBA portal, that you need to start there. If it's a bank like ours, we've been emailing our clients and more proactive of like, hey, it's open, because you might have noticed if you tried to apply for forgiveness previously during the third round of applications, the portal was closed to take the applications, right? So if you haven't checked back, the portal's back open, so you should be able to apply depending on which round you took and how your bank's going to handle that. So start now, even though you might not be applying for forgiveness now, find out how your bank is going about that. And I would suggest, going to your bank's website first, because that's usually, we're trying to get the information out there. We know you're looking for it on how to apply. It's usually on the home screen. It says like you have to call this number for some banks. You can't walk into the branch and talk to an associate, and there's reasons for that because we're trying to keep the communication streamlined. You heard how Tim was talking about how many pages this is, and it's really complex. So there's usually a designated department that you can call, or they have streamlined communication via online, maybe through your online portal where you log into the bank to get that information to you. And there might be a concise, a way to reach out if you have questions and get those status updates. They're typically electronic, or there's a specific department, or some of you, that are blessed to have a commercial relationship manager that is working with you, then that could be that point of contact as well to see where do I start and how am I even going to get the application for forgiveness in the system? Is it through my bank or through the SBA portal? So start there. And then when you're collecting that information, what do I need, and how am I going to apply, and am I going to be strategic? Like Tim said, work with a tax professional that can help you make sure you complete it, right? If it's a little bit more complicated, or maybe if this is your first time taking on something like this, or, I've had some, business owners, this is their first loan that they've done in their business. So it's just a little bit more complicated to them, and they need to ask more questions. So I would take the time to make sure you get it done right, and then have all that documentation. The bank's not going to ask for a lot of things, if you're in that less than 150,000 range. That doesn't mean you don't need it. So like he said, keep it. Just because we're not going to ask for it does not mean that you don't need it. So just have it in a file like he said. And it really is a streamlined process. When you go online, it is quick. We haven't had any loans not forgiven that we've submitted. Of course, there might be a difference with what you took versus what you paid out because you couldn't hire those people back. So there might have been a difference there. But, it's really been a streamlined process, and we've had time to really, focus on it and make it that way with the SBA and work with them. So, don't be afraid of it, right? The application process was more complicated. It was kind of rolling out as it went. And whereas this has been pretty set. So then we can answer those questions and just get it done for you, especially if you're in that under 150,000 range. The process is actually simple. You just need to make sure you have all your documentation. To Tim's point, don't put anything in there that you can't verify or that you don't have documentation for. Just have that, on the front end, even though we're not going to ask you to submit it. And then, if there is questions with, the process of the SBA, which Rosalind gave a lot of good information about the program, this is an SBA loan, and SBA does set the requirements for forgiveness. We're just helping implement that and review it for accuracy. So yes, it's up to us whether we go ahead and put it through. If we say, hey, you have everything, we're going to put this into the SBA. We're just trying to get it right the first time when we implement it so it doesn't get kicked back by the SBA. These are parameters and terms and everything that was voted on in the original CARES Act by the SBA. So this isn't a bank program like, our bank or whichever bank you bank with that we decide, what gets forgiven and what gets, who gets to apply. It's really the SBA, but we're helping, be that go-between and that vehicle for you to get your information to the SBA and try to filter that on the front end, to make it more streamlined, to help the SBA out, to help you guys out. To make sure that, we get this completed for you. So just, have patience, if this is a little bit different than anything you've dealt with your bank that, usually does a great job. But there is multiple channels that you can take to apply for forgiveness. I would say the most common is through the online banking portal for banks. And then if you're with, some of those smaller community banks, they are the ones that have opted into the SBA, but you'll need to check with them on how you can go about doing that. And again, I can't stress how important it is, like Rosalind said, take your time and make sure the information is accurate. Because in this case, it's not like other cases where we can, have some adjustment and call and change things. We're going to kick it back to you and you've got to start all over in a lot of cases. So we're not going to put it in until it's accurate. So just help yourself out because there is a timeline, right, for when, you need to apply for that forgiveness depending on when you took out the application, when your payments are going to start to come due. We're in that space now. If you took first round to where you'll have to start, making that first payment. And you can still get it forgiven despite that, but it just starts, convoluting the process. So make it a priority. Check with your bank to see how am I going to process my forgiveness, and then get all your documentation together, reach out to a tax professional, and make sure that you have everything lined up and you're going to apply in the way that's best for you as your business. Every business is different. So you want to make sure that, what you do is best for you. Maybe don't ask another business owner, hey, I did this, I've seen that. Well, what is best for you? You don't know the whole picture of their structure and what they've got going on. Maybe ask them, do you have a good tax professional, right? And then you can get that contact there, but don't maybe do what your other friend's business is doing. You want to make sure you apply in the way that's best for you in your unique situation. And then if there's any other questions that come up, you can continue to reach out to your bank or your CPA, and we'll direct you in the right way. Just know we may not be able to answer the question. It might be an SBA answer. It might be a tax professional answer, or a banker answer. So just reach out to one of the three of us, and then we'll help guide you on who you should talk to. If you can't remember who's gonna help you with what area, just know it's not going to be one individual that's going to help you. Like, I can't help you with every single question depending on what it is. Neither can Tim, neither can the SBA. So you might have to do some due diligence to get with the right individual that can help you get this right. This was a great program. I've seen it, save some businesses that wouldn't have made it, and then been a blessing to so many others. And it's a great program, but it took work, right? We worked as well on our end to help, implement this. And, now it takes a little bit of work to get it forgiven, so, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm at First Citizens. My number is 904-394-2280. That's my office line. I can't help you if you don't bank with us, right? I can't help you get the application done, but hopefully, I do have some connections here with other banks. We help each other out. So with mutual clients. So if I can get you a contact, that might be able to help you at your bank, I'd be more than happy to do so. Or maybe if there's, another avenue for questioning that you have, I'd be happy to reach out to a contact that may be able to help you. And that's all I have.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. Appreciate that overview and insight and advice as well. With that, we're going to move into kind of a Q&A portion of the program. So this is the time to have access to, our presenters and be able to put those questions. So we'll sit here and watch the Q&A, see if we have any questions at this time. And also if each one of you could provide maybe one little takeaway nugget for everybody before we sound off. I'm going to go to my final slide. Rosalind, do you want to provide a takeaway for everybody?
Sure. Oh, I'm first. I couldn't think of that. Just be patient. That's the main thing. Be patient in the process. Be patient, very patient.
Awesome. Thank you. And Tim?
And
that's exactly what I was going to say, Rosalind. Did you want to add to that?
No, go ahead. I do have a question after we all do our takeaways.
Yeah, I do think that patience is key here. Julie kind of touched on it. When the loan first came out, we were kind of scrambling. A lot of people treated this like an SBA 7A loan. So they were gathering all of this voluminous paperwork. The owners were signing affidavits, and some of the banks kind of approached it that way. And some of the banks each have their own unique portal. So Julie's absolutely right. You have to get with your bank first. And you want to check with your bank before you ever go into the portal. So anyway, all of these things, my only takeaway is just be patient with the process. Even after the bank submits their paperwork, they still have to submit it to the SBA, and the SBA still has to review it and get it back. So that is a lengthy process. Just because you send it to Julie, don't go harassing her every day saying, hey, I sent it to you, because they do their process, and then they submit it to the SBA, and then the SBA does their process. So what you're looking for is that magical letter back from the SBA that Rosalind illustrated. And it may take some time, so just be patient with it. Everybody's a little short-staffed. Your restaurants, your SBA, your friendly bank, your friendly CPA, we're all a little short-staffed. So.
Awesome. And Julie?
Yeah, I would say start with going to your bank's website. It's probably on there somewhere of, where you need to go. There's like a PPP or COVID relief on the website. People, I think, they're walking into the bank, think, well, I'm going to go in person so I can talk to somebody. That's going to create more of a sense of urgency. There's somebody there that can help me rather than, going to the website. Because typically that is the case, right? If you come in front of us, we're going to help you right then and make you a priority versus somebody on the phone maybe or something. So, but this is a little bit different. So start with the website, save yourself the time. Go to your bank's website, look online. If you're logging in, to your online banking, you might be surprised it's somewhere on there when you log in. Hey, the portal's open, and then you can click it and read through it. And you saw how simple it is, like Rosalind said. Like, you may not need us to help you with it. Like, it may be simple enough, depending on the amount, or if you just put the information in accurately, you can do it. Where you might be sitting and waiting for a bank representative or on a 1-800 number. Take a look yourself first. Take a look at the website and then see if they have a portal, right? Like, see what that looks like. And then you'll have an idea of, if you can take this on without needing help, or if you still do, then there's probably a reference within there somewhere of who to reach out to and who to contact. So look at your bank's website, step one.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. And Rosalind, what question did you have that you wanted to ask the group?
Well, it was a question in the chat and I wanted to address it.
Yeah.
It said, good morning. I am a self-employed marketing consultant and I receive an SBA economic injury disaster loan. Is this the same process for type of loan? If not, are there any forgiveness programs for those loans? No, sir. No, ma'am, it is not. The EIDL loan, which is the economic injury disaster loan, that is a loan directly from the SBA, and you will have to repay that loan. If you have questions on that, what I can do, I can submit you a fact sheet to that extent. You can send me an email at rosalind.bryant@sba.gov. My email address again is Rosalind, that's ROSALIND .Bryant, thank you, Jackie, at sba.gov. Shoot me an email in reference to that same question. I will in turn kind of submit you that fact sheet on as far as the process of repaying that loan. You should start receiving, when it's time for payment, you should start receiving information directly from the SBA. That is not a district office. It's done through our disaster office. So it's not much I can see or do for you, but I can provide that information to you so you can review it and get to the right place for that. And the last thing, to piggyback on what Julie said, make sure you, like she said, go to the reference pages to your bank portal, go to your bank website, read the frequently asked questions, read that information first before reaching out to someone. Because what's going to happen when you call that call center, or if you get anybody, especially I know with SBA, they're going to start referencing you back to those places first. They're not there to spend 15, 20, 30 minutes with you, because again, they have over 7 million applications that they got to process and get through there. So the first thing you want to do your research first. The information that is provided to you, review that information, look at the resources that are there, look at the frequently asked questions, go to your bank website and get that information first and see if the questions that you have can be answered. That way you will have the knowledge. That way when they say, hey, have you read this? You could say, yes, I did, but it was not there. Or you could go back and say, hey, I just need clarification, not what do I do? Let them know that you have read or you have went through the information that has been provided to you in black and white, so you can get a full understanding of it. However, you probably need a little bit more verification. That will help you out. It will be more time consumed. You can get through it in a timely manner. You don't have to worry about saying, hey, these folks are not answering the phone, because I'm quite sure that call center is there, but after a while, it's going to get busy. So just so you know, I always tell folks this: when you're calling the SBA, any 1-800 number, any type of call center, if you call during busy times, it's going to be busy. If you call during the busy time, it's going to be busy. So you may have a wait, but the best time to call, like the first 30 to an hour when it first opens, and the last 30 minutes to an hour when it closes. That when people kind of laid off. But if you call between, I'm going to say 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., it's going to be real busy. You're going to have to wait 10, 15 minutes. And again, when you call those call centers, or you're calling someone, anyone, myself, Tim, Jackie, or Julie, for any questions, have your questions written down so we can answer those questions and get that to you in a timely manner. As again, I keep saying this, we are all overwhelmed, we're all short-staffed, and we all want to provide the best customer service to you. So, and we know you are very important, just like the next 30 people that's going to be calling us. So we want to have that time out there to provide that assistance to you and get everybody loan forgiven, get you the answers to your questions that you have, and make sure everybody continue to be successful in what they're trying to do. So just for me, thank you again for joining, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Rosalind. I really appreciate you sharing that. And it's definitely the truth. You know, we do this out of labor of love, I always say. So, you know, we are truly here for you. That's why we want to put these programs on. That's why we want to make sure that you're aware of the information. And as Rosalind mentioned, and, you know, all of the folks mentioned, we'll have the information available to you in the online classroom. I will share the contact information of all the speakers today as well. So you'll have their direct contact to be able to reach out and ask any questions that maybe you didn't have available right now. And then we'll engage with you after the fact so that you can still be involved in the programs that we offer and help, like Rosalind mentioned, be successful in your enterprise. So with that, thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it. Thank you to our speakers again for your time and your valuable information. Everybody have a great rest of your afternoon, and we will follow up with you with the recording.
You're welcome, Jackie. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.